Hello, welcome to this caching strategy example, how it runs in Mulesoft. So I'm going to demonstrate the cache scope. Let me do with a live example. See what I'm going to do in this, the objective of this is I take a destination from the URL and I query the flights based on the URL destination, and after that how that information is stored in the cache I'm going to demonstrate here. So I just call it as a cache example. Uh, Next one is create allow outputs and then create the project. So what simply I'm going to do here is like I take up a HTTP connector and I expect the destination as a query parameter in it, and my operation is get flights. So I consider two variables. I'm going to completely explain how does it work, but let me just create few variables and then the purpose of them I'm going to explain, and I put a logger as well. Yeah, and then what is this variable is a destination, which are the I'm going to query the flights based on the destination. So I call it as a dest and it is coming as a query parameter, message dot inbound properties dot query params dot dest. The another one is the parameter which I'm going to take it up, and I want to store the cache in against the key. I define example as a cache key. So in this I consider requested URI as a cache key. So set cache key. So any objects, response objects I want to store against this cache key, but I consider this as a unique because cache key contains the destination is unique. So this is the requested URI, and I'm going to log this requested URI cache key. Flow variables dot cache key. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the I'm going to create another flow which actually calls the database, but meanwhile I'll create a flow reference for that. Okay, flow. I'll create this flow. I'll call it as get data from DB. Okay, now it is getting a data from a DB, and I create a flow reference here. Before that, okay, now is the caching scope I need to define so that the response from a DB will be stored in the cache against the cache key. So how does it work is, see cache scope, I'm going to define the cache scope, and in this cache scope I'm going to call the flow reference. So I'm going to call this flow, put inside this one, and this flow actually is get DB. That means like get DB flow reference is called within the cache, and the response from that DB is stored against the key, which is URI. So what is going to happen here? I put some logger information to indicate that okay, the response is the request is coming to the database. So I'll just call it as this is from the get data from DB. You will understand completely what I'm doing at the moment, in a moment, and I'm going to create a database quickly. This database, I have the information here, the Mulesoft database training database, which is a MySQL, and I have the information which is same as a training database. So 3306 mule and is a training. Okay, then after that I'm going to add the connect driver to it. Okay, test the connection. Hopefully connection should be successful. Okay, now connection is successful. Let me quickly go back to this one, and I do select operations, select parameters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fetch the flights based on the destination flights, where to airport is equal to this is actually flowware dot dest. Now we have defined that, and the query is returned, and I'm going to return this result in a object in a JSON format. So what I'm going to do is object to JSON. Okay, now JSON response is returned when the flow is caught. Okay, now actually, okay, I have defined the variable, I have defined the cache key, I have defined the logger as well. Okay, now the thing is, important thing is, like, I have to define the caching. What is my caching scope is? See, when I click on the cache scope, then we have the different things. Caching strategy reference is a default caching strategy. I would like to define my own caching strategy where I can store the responses based on the keys I define. So now what happens is, like, I'm going to define my own strategy is a flights caching strategy. Flights caching strategy. And what is your object store? It could be several things. One is a in-memory simple text. You can also store in a text. I would like to just take it as a in-memory for the sake of time, to save the time. And this actually I'll say flights cache, and maximum I would like to store around 2000, and 15 seconds is the time to leave, and 15 seconds is the expiration interval. So now I have defined my strategy, and now the response will be stored against what? Now is the key. I need to define a key against which the response will be stored. Because my requested URI is unique based on the destination, hence I have taken that as a key, and which is in the cache key. I say define that to cache key. Now what happens is, like, okay, now I have defined the cache strategy, and I'm going to execute that. Okay, now overall the example says when I make a first destination, for example SFO, San Francisco, first time there won't be anything in the cache. It will go to the database, it logs the information saying that I'm fetching from the database, and then returns the response in JSON format to the cache. And this caching stores that response against the cache key. If I make with the same destination again, it serves from the cache. That means I don't see this logging information. I only see this logging information only inside the main flow. Okay, let's say example. I'm going to run this example. Hopefully it should be running fine. Let me save first and run this example. Then I'm going to go to the browser and say okay, now what happens is, like, Okay, I'm going to create a new browser and I'm going to make a request with SFO. SFO is San Francisco. First time there is no data in the cache, it fetches from the database. That means like I should be able to see both the logging informations. One is logger cache key and as well as the logging from the database. Subsequent calls should show only the cache key. Okay, now this is the one which the cache is going to stay for 20 seconds. And first time I will make a request. Okay, I see the two messages. One is the get flight San Francisco. This is a get flight from DB. Now see, for example, I'm going to make another call from another tab where I should see only the cache key logging, not from the DB. Okay, if I make a DB San Francisco, I'm going to get only from, or did I? Okay, now it is only a cache key. It is going to see only the cache key, but not from DB. Get from DB. So if you wait for 15 seconds, the cache expires. Then again it goes back to the database and then fetches it. Meanwhile, if I call CLE, is another one. Then CLE is the first time I'm calling. It goes and fetches from the database. When I keep refreshing it, I don't see CLE from the database, but I see only CLE served from the cache here. See, I see only the cache key. Now SFO, I think is already 15 seconds is over. I think cache might have expired. Let me go and access from for SFO. And according to me, the behavior should be I should see both get flights and as well as from within the get DB, get data from the DB. So you can see those two messages here. Okay, it goes to cache key SFO, retrieved from the database, and subsequent calls to SFO is only from the cache key. Is only from the cache. Is only from the cache. You see that. Okay, this demonstrates that initially, first time it goes to the flow, gets the result, caches it against the cache key, and then onwards for that requested URI, it serves only from the cache until it expires. Hope this video helps you. Thanks for watching.